Hello! So we're going to show you today how we're going to do our rainbow hope embroidery, and I have actually just traced the rainbow just with dots using the window, taped the image to the window and taped the embroidery cloth over it. The word, obviously you can do the whole bit. If you have something like a friction pen, then you can sort of do all the lines, but the thing if you're doing it in pencil is that you will see the lines, so you've got to be quite careful what you're actually tracing. So for the purposes of seeing where the different colours of the rainbow come, I've just used dots, and hopefully my stitching will cover that. So I've traced the word hope, and I've actually got it on a bigger frame. Yours is a 6-inch frame, so it's slightly smaller, but you can see that still fits in there. The design is designed for the 6-inch, but I just wanted to be able to sort of show you on this one so that I can tilt it towards the camera. So your word hope is going to be in 2 strands of your black thread that you have with your needle, and we're going to start with a whipped back stitch. So how I like to do a whipped back stitch is I do all the back stitching and then I go back and do all the whipping, which is basically just sort of feeding a thread all the way through, so it sort of almost joins it up, so it looks a smoother look of stitch if you're doing words. Okay, so I'm going to carry on doing this. When I get back to doing the whipped bit, I will show you how to do that part. If you want to whip it as you go, I've just done all the stick of the H there, so you can just slide your needle underneath, and again in the next stitch, and actually this will take you back down to the bottom. So there's 2 ways. You can either whip it as you go, or you can do all the back stitch and then do all the whipping, but you can see how it makes it. I'm just going to secure that bit of whipping there, and then I'll come up and do the arch of the H. Okay, so that should give you an idea of getting your words done. The reason I think it will be actually easier to do the word first and then do your stitching around it. Okay. Okay, so we've done our hope letters, and now we're going to work on this sort of first inner arch. It is a sort of what I like to call a rustic rainbow. That's sort of how I like them to sort of be, a little bit taller, and it doesn't matter too much, you know, if you're sort of going slightly higgledy-piggledy. It is sort of meant to be sort of a rustic look. So on this first one we're just doing a running stitch, so in the purple, so the running stitch sort of has to be a even stitch. It's just a sort of straight stitch, but your size of your stitches need to be very even, and also you need to make sure that you're covering those dots. So whether it's just the start of one, I'm struggling sort of with my varifocals and using my left hand here, whether it's sort of the start of one of your stitches or it's covered underneath, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so the inner part of the rainbow is the purple, and that's going to be a running stitch. And what we're going to do is either sort of 2 or 3 sets until we get to, in fact we might just do 2, I think. We'll see how we go, and then when we get to this next one, the next set of dots is going to be the start of our blue. Okay, so you've done 2 rows of running stitch, and your next colour. So we just sort of finished before this sort of next line of dots, which is where your next colour is going to start. So our next colour in the rainbow is a blue, and for this one we're doing a fly stitch. So you sort of, it basically two sort of back stitches and then to the side, and then making the stem. So the two side stitches come into the middle, and then the center stitch is the one that will help you move around the curve. And around the back of the fabric I have my finger, and it's sort of guiding my needle where it needs to go. And you may find that you might need to turn your hoop a different way to sort of get the ones on the curve. So hopefully we'll try and get two of these. So we'll try and get two of each different stitch, and it's a lovely way to actually get into embroidery. You're really having to sort of think about, you know, concentrating solely on where your needle is going, where to put the thread. It's a very sort of mindful activity, and it's great if you've got children that, you know, want to learn how to sew or want to try something. It does take a bit of patience. Probably, you know, children who are a little bit older, or, you know, have done a little bit of sewing maybe, but these stitches are easy to do. It's not they're not complicated stitches, so it's almost like a sort of sampler work. And when you see those sort of in history, you know, they usually have the dates on and everything, don't they, and the names. But they were sort of, I know it's a different era, but they were sort of children that were quite a bit younger really than you would expect. An extremely neat work. My gran used to have one on a wall, and they're just fascinating to look at. Okay, so you're just going to keep going round, and so my finger is behind, trying to guide the needle into the correct position, and just take a little bit of time, because the longer you take, then, you know, the more you'll have it as you want it. Okay, so this is going to be the blue fly stitch all around. The second row can go in the same direction or in the opposite direction as I've tried to do. So just to sort of show you the stitch again, you sort of start with one sort of back stitch, and then you're going to come forwards a little bit, and it's trying to get those these side sections at the same sort of angle, and then it goes back to the center, and then it's going to come up where you want the other sections, or the other wing, if you like, of the fly stitch. And again, it's sort of testing and trying to get the same angle and the same ish size. Although I've maybe gone a little bit rustic, but you can, as I say, do both in the same direction, or you can do opposite, or you could do one fly stitch and then a running stitch, if you like. I'm showing you how to do these stitches and how it works out for the design that I've done, but there's always, you know, the element of you can pick and choose which way you want to do it. This is how I do it. You can see now as well why we only sort of put dots as well for the arches. As I say, unless you've got a heat soluble pen, you know, then that will be absolutely fine. And when you're tracing it, takes some time, because you can move the fabric as well, or you might want to do that, you know, if you want a sort of more rustic style. So take a little bit of time, because as you use either a pen or a pencil, your fabric will move. It's not like writing on, I might have to just redo that last one. It's not like writing on paper. Okay, so now we're going to change colour to the green. When you're doing your knots at the back, make sure you sort of go through a thread and then feed the thread through it. Once you've got your tail end, then use some little embroidery scissors. We do have these as well. You can have those as an addition to your kit. It just makes it easier to sort of snip close to the fabric, so that the back of your fabric should look, you know, relatively neat as well. So we've threaded up our green. We seem to have got an awfully long piece. It's probably not such a good idea. And we're going to do chain stitch for this. So you come up initially with one thread. So you're going to make a little stitch, and then you make sure that the needle comes up. Oops. Just cut our thread inside that loop, and then as that loop is tightened, that pulls the chain, and then your next stitch just secures that chain, but also goes in for the next little stitch to be the chain. Okay, I like this green. It's sort of quite a sort of foresty green, and again it's about taking that time, trying to make sure that your chains are going to be of a similar size. You see that? So that's what we're going to do there, and we're going to do 2 rows of the green chain. Little anchor stitch, making sure it's quite close. Loop back through to the front and loop under the thread. We do have other kits as well. We have a nice heart sampler which has some sort of similar stitches as well, that just looks a little bit different with the heart. Okay, so we're on to yellow, and I'm sort of getting quite close to some of my dots. I've got 2 colours left after yellow. I've got orange and red. So when you're doing a colour, you always sort of want to finish on your last sort of row of dots, and then you know the next colour is going to go up to the next row of dots, and then the next colour is going to go up to there. So I know if I do one more row and I'm on this next row of dots and I finish there, hopefully you can see that, then I've still got 2 dots, so that's absolutely fine. And what I've done this time is I'm working on a running stitch, and then I'm going to lace it. So when you lace it, rather than when you did your lettering you sort of whipped it and you do it the same way, when you're doing a lacy one, your second thread goes in and out and in and out, so it just makes a more sort of wavy sort of solid line for that one. So with the lacy, I thought I'd show you on the second row. You go through one side, and then on the next stitch you go the opposite way. And then you go from that side, and then you go under the stitch that side, and this is just to sort of make a more bold line, but it makes a wavy lacy line if you like. So next colour we're going to be on to after this is going to be orange, and then we've just got the red. Okay, so the orange row is repeating the green row, so we're doing two little rows of chain, and then we'll be onto the red. The two last red rows are going to be a running stitch in the, it's sort of a deep pinky red, and that sort of brings the simplicity back to the stitching in the last two rows, because we started off the purple with the running stitch as well. So after this we're going to tidy up. We're going to remove some threads from the back. I'm going to make sure that it's straight in the hoop. I'm going to back it also in this so that you can't actually see the stitching, and then I'll be able to sort of add the bow and any accessories that you would like to. Thank you for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any queries, just let me know on thewoodcottagecrafts@gmail.com, and we could always sort of help you virtually. Thank you.